The sixth Thalian diplomatic vessel, Eternal Harmony, glided through space with all the grace of a celestial dancer, its crystalline hull refracting starlight in patterns that would make any poet weep. Ambassador Nixtal stood on the observation deck, their iridescent scales shifting through shades of peaceful blue as they contemplated their latest diplomatic mission. The six Thalians had spent the last 3 centuries spreading harmony throughout the galaxy, helping younger species overcome their primitive, aggressive tendencies. This mission would be no different. The newly discovered humans had managed to achieve faster-than-light travel without destroying themselves, which was promising. Initial long-range observations suggested they were a species focused primarily on entertainment, commerce, and something called social media. Their ships appeared to lack any significant armaments, leading the Galactic Council to classify them as a Category 1 non-aggressive species. Ambassador, Chief Observer Vexler's scales flickered with excitement. The human vessel USS Gettysburg is approaching our designated meeting coordinates. Nixtal's secondary eye membranes blinked in approval. The humans had chosen to send what they called a diplomatic cruiser for first contact. How civilized. Begin the standard peaceful species contact protocol, Nixtal hummed melodiously. Initiate the calming light display and activate the empathy field generators. The Eternal Harmony's hull began to pulse with soothing patterns of light, a display that had never failed to put potential allies at ease. The empathy field generators would help the humans feel the six Thalians' peaceful intentions directly. Human vessel is within communication range, announced Communications Officer Mixver. They're hailing us using standard galactic frequencies. How unexpected for such a young species. Excellent. Nixtal's scales rippled with pleasure. They must have decoded our beacon transmissions. This suggests a highly intelligent, peace-oriented species. The massive view screen flickered to life, revealing the human command crew. Nixtal noted with satisfaction that they wore what appeared to be ceremonial uniforms rather than protective armor. This would be a straightforward diplomatic success, another species to guide toward galactic harmony. What a shame that Ambassador Nixtal had never learned to recognize military dress uniforms. The docking procedure between the Eternal Harmony and USS Gettysburg went smoothly enough, though Ambassador Nixtal couldn't help but notice how the human ship's docking arm moved with an almost predatory precision. Still, their scales maintained their peaceful blue hue as they waited to greet their guests. Welcome aboard the Eternal Harmony, Nixtal broadcast both verbally and empathically as the human delegation emerged through the crystalline airlock. We are honored to... They paused, secondary respiratory system hitching slightly as they processed the sight before them. The human delegation consisted of 5 members. 4 wore what the Zixathalians had assumed were ceremonial uniforms, but it was the 5th member that caught Nixtal's attention. A tall, muscular human with a distinctly different uniform stood at the rear of the group, posture rigid, eyes constantly scanning. The insignia on their uniform read, Gunnery Sergeant Thompson. Ambassador, the lead human diplomat stepped forward with a practiced smile. I'm Diplomatic Envoy Chen. We bring greetings from Earth and her colonies. He gestured to his team. My diplomatic staff and our security attaché, Gunny Thompson. Security? Nixtal's scales rippled with confusion. What could possibly require security during a peaceful first contact? The delegation moved through the Eternal Harmony's corridors, their footsteps eerily silent on the living crystal floors. The ship's architecture was a testament to Zixthalian advancement. Organic curves flowing into impossible angles, walls that shifted from opaque to transparent based on thought patterns, and anti-gravity lifts that moved on pure light. Fascinating construction, Gunny Thompson's deep voice rumbled, making Nixtal's scales twitch. Load-bearing structures? The crystal is self-supporting, Chief Observer Vexler answered proudly. Our ships grow rather than being built. Grown crystal? Thompson's eyes narrowed thoughtfully. Hardness rating? Before Vexler could answer, Envoy Chen smoothly interrupted. The architecture is breathtaking. Shall we proceed to the cultural exchange chamber? The chamber in question was the Eternal Harmony's pride, a vast dodecahedral space where the walls displayed real-time images of various Zixthalian worlds. Floating platforms of solid light provided seating, and the air itself seemed to shimmer with peaceful intent. "Please make yourselves comfortable," Nixtal gestured to the platforms. "The gravity fields will adjust to your biology automatically." The diplomatic staff settled in gracefully. Gunny Thompson, however, remained standing, positioning himself slightly behind and to the left of Envoy Chen. His eyes continued their methodical scan of the room. "Now then," Nixtal's scales shifted to a welcoming green. "Shall we begin discussing your species' achievements? We're particularly interested in your peaceful development of faster-than-light travel." "Of course," Chen smiled, "though I believe there's been a slight misconception about our development path." "Oh?" Nixtal's scales flickered curiously. "Yes," Chen nodded. "You see, our FTL drive wasn't exactly developed for peaceful exploration. It was originally part of something called the Defensive Deep Space Initiative." Behind him, Gunny Thompson's lip twitched in what might have been a smile. "Defensive initiative?" Nixtal's scales flickered in confusion. "But surely that was merely a precaution against natural phenomena. Space debris, solar flares, that sort of thing." Envoy Chen cleared his throat. "Well, partially, though it's worth noting that humanity has always believed in being prepared for multiple scenarios." Chief Observer Vexilor excitedly interrupted, their scales shimmering with pride. "Oh, we understand completely. The Zixthalian Unity also maintains defensive capabilities. Our shield technology can deflect up to 99.9% of known asteroid compositions." Gunny Thompson's cough sounded suspiciously like a snort. "Perhaps," Chen suggested smoothly, "we should start by comparing our civilian achievements. Humanity has made great strides in medical technology, for instance." "Yes," Nixtal brightened literally, their scales glowing with enthusiasm. "We've reviewed your public data broadcasts. Your development of cellular regeneration is particularly impressive, though we noticed it's largely focused on trauma treatment rather than age extension, quite unusual for a developing species." "There's a reason for that," Thompson muttered under their breath. "What was that?" Nixtal asked. "Nothing relevant to peaceful achievements," Chen interjected quickly. "Please tell us about Zixthalian medical advances." For the next hour, the aliens proudly detailed their society's accomplishments. They'd eliminated disease, extended their natural lifespan by 300%, and developed perfect harmony with their ecosystem. Their energy was clean, their resources unlimited through matter replication, and their society had known no conflict for over 15 generations. "Fascinating," Chen nodded diplomatically. "Though I notice your matter replication has size limitations." "Only for efficiency," Vexilor explained. "We can replicate anything smaller than a personal transport. Anything larger would be wasteful." "Can't copy weapons then," Thompson commented, making both Nixtal and Vexilor's scales flutter in confusion. "Weapons?" Nixtal asked. "Why would we need to replicate weapons? Our defense systems are more than adequate for space debris." "Right," Thompson drawled. "Space debris. Like those point defense arrays I spotted on our approach. Real good for asteroids, those precision tracking systems." The Zixthalians preened. "Yes, they can target and deflect objects as small as 1 centimeter. Perfect for maintaining safe shipping lanes." "Uh-huh." Thompson's expression remained neutral. "And those energy signature dampers? Real useful for debris detection?" "Indeed. They help us track even the smallest." Vexilor stopped suddenly, scales paling. "How did you know about the dampers? They're contained within the hull structure." "Lucky guess." Thompson's smile didn't reach their eyes. "Just like I'm guessing those crystal walls aren't just pretty architecture. Regenerative properties, right? Self-repairing?" The room fell silent. Nixtal's scales shifted through several confused colors before settling on a troubled purple. You seem to have extensive knowledge of defensive capabilities, Gunnery Sergeant Thompson." "Marine Corps tends to notice these things," Thompson shrugged. "Force of habit." "Marine Corps?" Vexilor asked. A peaceful scientific organization, Chen jumped in, dedicated to marine biology. Then why does their uniform display 37 different combat commendations? Communications Officer Mixver spoke up from their monitoring station, their enhanced vision having catalogued every medal and ribbon on Thompson's chest. Those are, Chen hesitated, awards for swimming? Thompson finally broke into a genuine grin. Hey now, sir, no need to fish for excuses. Think it's about time we had an honest discussion about humanity's capabilities. They turned to Nixtal. Starting with why we actually developed FTL travel. Ever heard of a preemptive strike? The translator took a moment to process the term. When it did, Nixtal's scales turned white with shock. Preemptive strike? Nixtal's translator struggled with the concept. You mean attacking before being attacked? But that's logical, Thompson finished, moving to the center of the chamber. Their casual stance had vanished, replaced by what the diplomatic staff recognized as their instructor pose. Permission to speak freely, sir. Envoy Chen sighed, rubbing his temples. At this point, Gunny, I don't think I could stop you if I tried. Right then, Thompson turned to address the increasingly distressed aliens. Let's talk about humanity's greatest hits. You folks been observing us for what, 6-month standard? 8, Vexler corrected automatically, scales still flickering in distress. 8 months, and in that time you've seen our movies, our social media, our civilian broadcasts, but did you ever wonder why humans are so obsessed with entertainment? Thompson's grin turned predatory. It's because we needed something to do during peacetime. Peacetime? Mixver's scales shifted to a questioning yellow, as opposed to wartime. See, where you folks spent the last few centuries spreading peace, we spent ours perfecting the art of conflict. Those point defense systems you're so proud of. We developed similar tech centuries ago. Difference is, we designed ours to shoot down incoming missiles, not asteroids. The aliens' scales collectively paled. But that's just the tip of the iceberg, Thompson continued, warming to their subject. You mentioned our medical advances focusing on trauma care. Well, when you've got soldiers getting shot, blown up, and worse, you get real good, real quick at putting people back together. That's cellular regeneration tech, developed to keep our fighters in the field longer. Fighters? Nixtal whispered. But your species classification, Category 1, non-aggressive. Thompson actually laughed. Yeah, about that. Might want to update your files. See, humans? We don't just fight. We turned it into a science. Remember those ceremonial uniforms you spotted? Each one represents a different branch of military specialization. Navy for space combat, Air Force for atmospheric superiority, Army for ground warfare, and Marines. They gestured to themselves. We're the ones who specialize in taking the fight directly to the enemy, anywhere, anytime. But your ships, Vexler protested. They're practically unarmed. Practically unarmed? Thompson's grin widened. Those sensor arrays you spotted? Missile launchers? The communication dishes? Railgun ports? And that diplomatic cruiser you're docked with? It's an Aegis-class destroyer with enough firepower to level a small continent. We just got real good at hiding our teeth. The entire Zixthalian delegation had begun emitting distress pheromones, their scales cycling through various shades of panic. And here's the real kicker, Thompson continued, clearly enjoying themselves now. Everything I've mentioned, that's just the basics. Wait until you hear about our special operations, psychological warfare, or my personal favorite, the concept of acceptable casualties. I don't understand. Nixtal managed, their voice barely a whisper. Your entertainment broadcasts, they show such peaceful activities. Oh, you want to talk entertainment? Thompson was on a roll now. Let's discuss why humans love strategy games. Chess? It's literally simulated warfare. Video games, combat simulators. Even our children play games like Capture the Flag. Basic tactical training disguised as fun. We're so used to thinking in terms of conflict that we turned it into entertainment. But why? McSeaver asked, genuinely bewildered. Why develop so many ways to harm? Because, Thompson's voice turned serious, in all of human history, we learned one truth the hard way. The universe isn't always nice. You folks developed defenses against space debris. We developed defenses against everything. Other humans, potential aliens, our own creations. You name it, we've figured out how to fight it. And you know what's really interesting? The aliens stared in horrified fascination. What you're seeing now, this is us being peaceful. This is humanity actively trying not to fight. Hell, the fact that we're here talking instead of testing your crystal hull's regenerative properties against kinetic bombardment, that's centuries of diplomatic progress right there. Envoy Chen cleared his throat. Perhaps, Gunny, we should move on to discussing trade agreements. In a minute, sir. Just want to make one thing clear to our new friends. Thompson's expression turned deadly serious. Everything I've mentioned, these are just our conventional capabilities. Wait until you hear about what we consider war crimes. War crimes? Nixtal tested the phrase, their scales now a sickly grey. You have regulations for warfare. Better. Thompson's expression remained deadly serious. We have rules about what's too extreme even in warfare. Things so bad we collectively agreed never to do them again. Usually after trying them first, of course. The Zixthalian delegation huddled closer together, their empathy field generators working overtime to process the waves of disbelief rolling through the chamber. See, regular warfare, Thompson continued, pacing slowly. That's just military forces against military forces. But humans? We figured out real quick that wars aren't just won on battlefields. Started getting creative. Psychological warfare, economic warfare, environmental warfare. If you can think of it, someone's probably tried weaponizing it. But you stopped? Vexilla asked hopefully. You created rules? Eventually, after we saw the results. Thompson's voice turned grim. Chemical weapons that could turn the air itself deadly. Biological agents that could wipe out entire populations. Weather manipulation, terraforming weapons, nanite swarms. We came up with so many horrifying ways to fight that we had to draw a line. Envoy Chen stepped forward. What the gunnery sergeant is trying to explain is that humanity has evolved beyond... With all due respect, sir, Thompson interrupted, they need to understand. These folks classified us as non-aggressive because they don't know what real aggression looks like. They turned back to the aliens. You know what's considered a war crime now? Targeting civilians, using weapons that cause unnecessary suffering, environmental destruction, torture, things that every major human conflict included until we collectively said too far. But your public broadcast, McSeaver's scales were almost translucent with shock. Your global network shows such peaceful interactions. Because we learned. Thompson's tone softened slightly. Hard way usually, through trial and error, and a whole lot of horror. Each rule in the Geneva Convention, our laws of warfare, is written in blood, represents something so terrible we had to formally agree never to do it again. Yet you maintain the capability? Nixtal asked, their diplomatic training warring with their growing terror. Always, Thompson nodded, because the second rule of humanity, right after don't do the horrible things, is be ready in case someone else does. Every weapon we've banned, we keep countermeasures ready. Every tactic we've outlawed, we maintain defenses against them. It's like an arms race in reverse. We're constantly preparing to defend against things we've promised not to do. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. The Zixthalian scales had settled into a uniform pale grey of deep existential distress. Here's the thing, Thompson continued, their voice taking on an almost gentle tone. All those defenses you're so proud of, the ones designed for space debris, they wouldn't last 5 minutes against a determined human assault, not because they're bad systems, they're actually pretty impressive, but because you designed them to protect against natural threats, while we... They paused meaningfully. We design everything assuming the enemy is just as creative and desperate as we are. Enemy? Vexilor's voice quavered. But we're not. Course not, Thompson agreed quickly. You're allies, potential friends even. And you know what's really beautiful about humanity's violent history? The alien stared, clearly struggling to find anything beautiful about the revelations. It means we understand exactly how precious peace is. When we say we want diplomatic relations, we mean it. When we extend the hand of friendship, it's genuine. Because nobody understands the value of peace better than someone who knows the true cost of war. And if we declined friendship? Nixtal asked carefully. Thompson shrugged. Then we respectfully withdraw, maintain polite distance, and update our defense protocols to account for crystal-based regenerative hull technology. Speaking of which, they turned to Envoy Chen. Sir, recommend we classify that as a priority tactical consideration for the boys back in R&D. Already noted, Gunny. Chen's smile was tired but genuine. Already noted. The next few hours aboard the Eternal Harmony were a flurry of activity that would have been comical if it weren't so telling. Ambassador Nixtal had called an emergency session with the Galactic Council, their scales still unable to settle on a single color as they paced before the holographic projection. Honored Council members, their voice trembled slightly, I move for an immediate reclassification of humanity. Category 1 non-aggressive is woefully inadequate. The council chambers erupted in confused chatter. High Chancellor Zix Mora's image leaned forward, their ancient scales a deep purple of concern. Explain. They have military branches, Nixtal blurted. Multiple specialized divisions dedicated solely to different types of warfare. Their technological development wasn't peaceful. It was driven by conflict. They don't just have weapons they won't use because they're too horrific. In the adjacent chamber, where the human delegation had been politely asked to wait, Gunny Thompson was teaching Chief Observer Vexler how to play poker. The alien scales shifted color with every hand, making bluffing impossible. But their ships, another council member protested. Our scans showed minimal armaments. Because we were looking for weapons we understood. Communications Officer Mixver cut in, their scales flashing with agitation. They've developed entirely new categories of warfare that our sensors weren't even programmed to detect. Back in the waiting room, Thompson was now explaining the concept of a poker face to an increasingly distressed Vexler. See, the trick is to make your opponent think you've got a better hand than you do, kind of like how we hide our ship's weapons behind sensor arrays. Vexler's scales turned pale again. In the council chamber, the discussion had turned frantic. What classification do you propose? High Chancellor Zix Mora asked. That's just it. Nixtal's scales rippled with confusion. We don't have a category for them. They're simultaneously more peaceful and more dangerous than any species we've encountered. They possess weapons of mass destruction but choose not to use them. They've developed horrible methods of warfare specifically so they can outlaw them. They're complicated, finished Mixver. Their diplomatic cruiser could probably destroy our ship, but instead their marine is teaching our staff games of strategy and deception. The council chambers fell silent. Finally, High Chancellor Zix Mora spoke. Create a new classification. Category X. Approach with caution and respect. Peaceful intentions backed by significant defensive capabilities. And offensive capabilities, Nixtal added quietly. Their marine mentioned something called preemptive strikes. In the waiting room, Thompson had moved on to explaining betting strategies. Sometimes you've got to risk everything on a single hand. Reminds me of this operation back on Titan. They paused, grinning. Actually, that's probably still classified. Vexlor's scales, which had just started returning to normal, went pale again. Ambassador, Envoy Chen called from the doorway. I believe we were discussing trade agreements. The council chamber erupted again. Trade? With them? Actually, Nixtal's scales finally settled on a determined blue-green. I believe it would be in our best interest. They've offered to share their medical technology, and more importantly, they paused significantly. They've expressed interest in defensive cooperation. You mean they'll protect us? Someone asked hopefully. I mean they'll teach us to protect ourselves, Nixtal corrected. Their Marines suggested something called joint training exercises. The Council's reaction was immediate and unanimous. The vote to establish formal diplomatic relations with humanity passed in record time. As the human delegation was escorted back to the main chamber, Thompson noticed the aliens' changed behavior. Gone was the condescending concern for a young species. Instead, there was a new wariness tempered with genuine respect. Everything all right? Thompson asked innocently, noting how the honor guard now matched their stride to the Marines' movements. Yes, Nixtal's scale shifted to a formal purple. We've simply updated our understanding of humanity's potential contributions to galactic peace. Through superior firepower? Thompson's grin was met with nervous color ripples from the assembled aliens. Through mutual cooperation and respect, Envoy Chen corrected smoothly. Isn't that right, Gunny? Of course, sir, Thompson nodded seriously. Peace through strength, understanding through shared knowledge, and friendship through honest communication. They paused. Speaking of honest communication, should I explain what a nuclear deterrent is, or should we save that for the second date? The collective color drain from the alien scales answered that question. One standard galactic month later, the Eternal Harmony's observation deck hosted a rather unique ceremony. The crystalline walls had been programmed to display a combination of Zixthalian peace symbols and, at Thompson's suggestion, the various insignias of Earth's military branches. The Galactic Council hereby recognizes humanity as a full partner in maintaining interstellar peace, Ambassador Nixtal announced, their scales a formal blend of diplomatic purple and respectful blue. We also formally acknowledge Earth's unique contributions to defensive doctrine. Thompson, standing at perfect parade rest beside Envoy Chen, managed to keep a straight face. The new diplomatic protocols established for human interaction had been heavily influenced by their previous conversations. The Zixthalians had created an entirely new department dedicated to understanding human military history, though they still couldn't quite wrap their minds around the concept of winning by losing until you learn enough to win for good. In recognition of our new partnership, Nixtal continued, we have prepared a gift. They gestured, and a section of the crystal wall shifted, revealing a display case containing what appeared to be a traditional Zixthalian peace crystal. This has been modified according to your Marine's suggestions. Modified how? Chen asked carefully. It's surrounded by a level 10 containment field, equipped with multiple redundant fail-safes and monitored by 3 separate security systems, Vexilor explained proudly. We're learning. That they are, Thompson murmured to Chen. They've upgraded their point defense systems 4 times since our first meeting. Almost feel bad about not telling them about our stealth technology. One revelation at a time, Gunny, Chen whispered back. Let them cope with the concept of camouflage first. The ceremony continued, with both sides exchanging formal declarations of friendship. The Zixthalians had insisted on including specific clauses about non-aggression, while the humans had quietly added protocols for joint defense planning. It was, as Thompson later described it, a perfect marriage of idealism and pragmatism. There's just one thing I don't understand, Nixtal confided to Thompson after the formal proceedings. Your species possesses such capacity for violence, yet you choose peace. You maintain weapons you won't use, perfect defenses you hope never to need, and train warriors while praying they'll never see combat. How do you reconcile these contradictions? Thompson considered this for a moment. Ever hear the human phrase, walk softly and carry a big stick? Our translators are having difficulty with that one, Nixtal admitted. It means the best way to keep peace is to be very, very good at war, Thompson explained. But, and this is the important part, to be just as good at not using that capability. Humanity learned the hard way that peace isn't just the absence of conflict, sometimes it's the presence of sufficient deterrence. And the games? Vexler asked, joining them. The poker, the strategy exercises? Practice, Thompson grinned, keeping our minds sharp, our instincts honed, and most importantly, finding ways to compete without combat. You folks aren't wrong about peace being the goal. You just never considered that sometimes the path to peace looks an awful lot like preparing for war. As the ceremony concluded and the human delegation prepared to return to their ship, Nixtal made one final observation. We've updated all our diplomatic protocols regarding humanity. Would you like to know your species' new official classification? Hit me, Thompson said, then quickly added, That means yes. Please tell me. Category X. Nixtal's scales shifted through a complex pattern of colors. Approach with caution and respect. Notes: species demonstrates unprecedented duality, capable of both extreme violence and extreme restraint. Recommended protocol: sincere friendship backed by continuous defensive preparation. Not bad, Thompson nodded. Pretty accurate, actually. Though you might want to add one more note. Oh, yeah. Makes excellent allies, terrible enemies, and really enjoys teaching card games to aliens. As the human delegation departed, Nixtal watched the USS Gettysburg disconnect from their ship. Its sensor arrays, which they now knew weren't just sensors, tracked their movement with that same predatory precision, but somehow it didn't seem as threatening anymore, perhaps because they now understood that humans were like their weapons, carefully designed, meticulously maintained, and deployed with extreme discretion. You know, Vexler commented, their scales showing a mix of worry and amusement, I think I finally understand why humans spend so much time on entertainment. Why's that? Nixtal asked. Because if they spent all their time thinking about everything they're capable of, they'd scare themselves. The Eternal Harmony's crystal walls pulsed with light as the human ship departed, its diplomatic weapons still concealed, but no longer hidden. Peace through strength, understanding through shared knowledge, and friendship through honest communication. Perhaps humanity had the right idea after all.